This cost and time estimator was created to allow social media managers and marketing teams to be able to assess the true effort it requires for them to manage a certain number of platforms at a certain frequency, and then leverage this information to advocate for more resources, or maybe to advocate to scale back, to say, hey, we don't have the resources to add another channel, and here's why. And I think having this third-party tool really adds credibility and value.
Hey, welcome to the Higher Ed Storytelling University podcast, a show where we bring together Marcom leaders from both inside and outside higher ed to give you fresh perspectives on successful organic content creation and strategy in higher education. My name is John Azzoni. I'm the founder at Unveiled, a video production company working specifically with colleges on their storytelling and commercial video content. You can learn more about our work at unveiled.tv. That's UNVEILD. And if creating content that resonates emotionally with your audience is a priority for you, then you need to be subscribed to the Higher Ed Storytellers Digest. It's my weekly newsletter where we cover a lot of ground about content creation and strategy in higher ed. So sign up for that for free at unveiled.tv/newsletter. All right, let's get on with the show. My guest today is Maya Demishkevich. Maya is a marketing strategist, higher ed CMO, and social media expert and consultant. Welcome to the show, Maya.
Thanks, John. Great
to have you here. I see your stuff pop up on LinkedIn all the time, and I always think I need to get her on the show, and I finally had an idea for an episode to get you on here. So glad to have you here.
Me too. I think we have a lot of cool stuff to discuss. So looking forward to our conversation.
So tell me something people might be surprised to know about you.
Well, the first thing you mentioned, you found me on LinkedIn. You saw my post on LinkedIn. And I think a lot of people don't know that I've only started posting on LinkedIn less than 2 years ago. And I started presenting at higher ed conferences. 2 years ago was my first presentation. And I've been in higher ed for almost 15 years. And I've been so focused on raising my family, raising my kids, that it wasn't a priority for me. And now that I have more time, I can dedicate it to sharing and learning from others. So 2 years ago, I actually made a conscious decision to kind of put aside my imposter syndrome, the self-doubt, the fear of judgment, and kind of open myself up to possibilities and approach social media with curiosity. Before that, I always felt like to post on social media, you have to be perfect, you know?
Yeah.
I don't know if you ever felt this way.
Yes.
And like you have to know everything before you post. But then I realized that, yes, some people have expertise in certain areas, but I also have expertise in other areas where I can share and contribute to the higher ed community. So I think a lot of people don't know that it's recent for me. And since then, I've presented at 10 higher ed conferences. I've been featured on multiple podcasts. I was invited to speak at AMA, which was like on my bucket list to go.
The Super Bowl of speaking sessions.
It was amazing. And just so many opportunities have opened up because I joined the higher ed community on LinkedIn and became more open to sharing.
That's great. I just checked out your LinkedIn, and I'm kind of like I kind of follow the same path. Like a couple of years ago, got real serious about LinkedIn and been posting every day probably for the past year.
Mm-hmm.
Before that, I was a little more sporadic. But I noticed we have a very similar amount of followers. So, let's get both of us over that 2,000 follower mark.
Right.
Right. I'm like,
yeah. Well, I'm not as dedicated as you are. I can't post every day yet, but maybe I'll get to that point.
So I take my strategy is Mondays are my content creation days.
Mm-hmm.
So I usually schedule out my newsletter, and I'll take a couple hours and schedule out LinkedIn posts. And usually I'll write like a couple new ones, or I'll go into Riverside and like pull a clip from a podcast or something
Mm-hmm.
like that. And then the rest are honestly just like repurposed from, months ago, just popular posts that just deserve a second chance.
Right.
Yeah, so it's a mix of repurposing and new stuff. So that helps a lot. It helps it, not be like every day trying to like say some genius thing from scratch.
I mean, you're doing a great job. I enjoy your content. My strategy is a bit more fluid. I post as inspiration strikes, or if I do something that really inspires me or excites me, or if I have an idea I want to share. So I try not to force LinkedIn on myself and not to stress myself out too much because, you know, I have a lot going on. So I enjoy those inspiration moments.
Yes. And on that note of you having a lot going on, you are quite the entrepreneur. And I didn't know this about you until we had our pre-call. So I wanted to just touch on this. Tell me about all of your business ventures.
Yeah, they're more like side projects, I would say. But, you know, I do have a lot of interests. And I think that I enjoy trying new things and I enjoy solving problems. So when I come up with a solution, I am the type of person who learns by doing, and I really need to see it through. It's not the idea that's just keeps floating. Like, I really need to see if it's actually a good solution. So I like to implement those ideas. And this mindset kind of over time led me to starting a web marketing consultancy, Wholesome Nibbles, which is a vegan, gluten-free food business. Now College Crusader, which helps colleges with social media and analytics. And fortunately, my husband is also very entrepreneurial, and he manages those businesses on a day-to-day basis. So that allows me to still be creative, you know, support him in growing those ventures, but still have my job in higher ed, which I also enjoy and love. So yeah, that's a little bit about those
great.
ventures. Yeah.
That's great. Yeah, I kind of resonate with that because I have a lot of little hobbies and I'll always come up with ideas. I'm like, how can I monetize this? Like, you know, just like I also love solving problems. I was very intrigued by the Wholesome Nibbles. So tell me, like, great tasting, plant-based, no sugar added, gluten-free, vegan, raw. So my wife is gluten-free and dairy-free. And so anytime she finds something that she can eat that's good, it gets hidden in a cabinet away from my daughters who will just devour. And me, honestly, I have no self-control. If there's something good to eat in the house, Laura will bring home a box of like Honey Nut Cheerios or something like that, and they're gone. Like, nice try. If you wanted to have a bowl of that, you better get in there quick. But yeah, she's a big fan of the sort of alternative, you know, health food with food sensitivities and stuff like that. How did that come about for you guys?
Yeah. Well, this one was after giving birth to my second child. I was home for like 3 months, and I realized that now health is more important than ever. Now I'm responsible for 2 kids, and I want to make sure that they grow up with good, healthy habits and that I stay healthy myself and active. So, you know, I decided to adjust kind of our diet and what type of food we eat. And it was relatively easy to find like grass-fed meats and vegetables, but I had a really hard time finding good desserts because usually they have tons of sugar, tons of ingredients that are not really good for you. So I started experimenting making those small, I call them bliss bowls or truffles, using different seeds, nuts. And I love them, my kids love them, and our friends came to me and they said, wow, those are amazing, you should go and like try selling them. So I'm like, okay, maybe I should. So I went to a farmer's market, I got a stand, and I started selling them, and people enjoyed those products. So, and then later on, we were at more markets, then coffee places. And during COVID, we transitioned to selling completely online. So it's all online now. But yeah, so most of my businesses, I'm meeting my own need. You know, I identify what I need and I try to solve my problem. And it happens so that other people have the same problem very often. So
yeah. Well, I think that adds a level of dynamic to your value as a higher ed marketer. I think, you know, when you're also actively, you know, marketing a business outside of higher ed, you're sort of like able to bring a lot of that, you know, stuff into your clients. And do you find that to be true?
Yeah, no, definitely. I feel like I learned so much by doing those businesses, from even like doing events at farmers market, you know, doing a great table, to nurturing those clients and into making additional purchasing decisions,
Yeah.
the whole nurture email sequence. Yeah, I definitely learned a lot. So it is, I think, helpful in my current role.
Cool. When you think videographer, you probably think of one person with a camera that will come film some stuff for YouTube for you. When you think commercial, you probably think like this separate big undertaking that involves an ad agency and all this stuff. But at Unveiled, guess what? We do both. You want to do some nimble documentary style storytelling? We got you. You want to create a polished, like really slick 30-second commercial to stream on Hulu with professional actors and set design and a director that yells action, and there's like a whole table that's just filled with like free bagels and snacks and coffee all day long. Guess what? We got you there too. And it would not be our first rodeo. We've done some rodeos. We can get this done for you anywhere in the US without the travel costs that would come along with flying a 20-person crew out. So don't feel like you have to be limited by your location with who you hire for a project like this. So head over to unveiled.tv/commercials to see some of our commercial work, as well as behind the scenes content. And you can book a call with me to chat further right there on our website. All right, back to the show. We started talking on LinkedIn when you sent me your social media cost calculator. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of what we want to, for people listening, I usually introduce what the episode is about, which I didn't do. So we're not here to talk about gluten-free, dairy-free, wholesome nibbles, but that's the foot we got off on because I like to start on a tangent. But we are here to talk about social media, cost calculator that you built, and really just like the theory behind why we would need a calculator. Because as I was looking at it and I was like doing, I was playing with the sliders and things like that, and I was like, this is really brilliant because this is forcing me to think about how much time is actually going to take to do a social media effort or something like that. And I have this one friend who I used to work with, and he's very analytical, and he used to be the producer at the company I worked at. And he used to always drive us nuts because we'd have a client that's like, hey, we got this like real simple project.
Real simple and quick.
And he would sit there and go, okay, well, it's going to take 4 hours to do this. It's going to take 8 hours to do this. It's going to, and like he would map everything out, and it would get so like complicated. But then, and we would just be like, I thought this was simple. Let's just get this out, and he would be like, well, wait a minute. Like, you're going to spend the time doing these things.
Right.
You need to actually make sure that we're covering the cost of doing those things. And I always think of that when I'm like really trying to map out like how much time does something actually take. It's often more than, it's never just a simple thing. Like, let's just jump on TikTok or Instagram and let's just start posting some stuff. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, tell me about like what was the inspiration for the calculator?
I mean, I think what you just talked about is exactly what I was trying to address. I mean, social media management as a field emerged more than 15 years ago. So it's not new. It's not last year. I mean, relatively new. But still, a lot of people think that it's quick and easy and just post a video. And I hear it a lot from faculty and staff. The social media is underestimated in how much time it takes. And because it's underestimated, you can get additional resources because people think it's quick and easy, right? But social media, I think, is one of the most important communication tools for higher ed institutions to not only increase awareness, but also build community and drive retention. And I've seen firsthand at my institution the impact of managing social media well on our brand awareness and engagement in our student body. But it's very difficult to demonstrate the time commitment it takes and the effort it takes to create something good. So let's take TikTok, for example. How much time does it take to create a video? It's not just taking a camera and going to shoot it. You have to think about what are the trends, what is the message, what is your strategy, what is the script, who is going to be shooting it, are you going to be inviting students or faculty to participate, editing, selecting music. So just one video can take up to 2 hours minimum, right, to do with all the thinking behind it. And people don't realize that. So this cost and time estimator was created to allow social media managers and marketing teams to be able to assess the true effort it requires for them to manage a certain number of platforms at a certain frequency, and then leverage this information to advocate for more resources, or maybe to advocate to scale back, to say, hey, we don't have the resources to add another channel, and here's why. And I think having this third-party tool really adds credibility and value. So that was kind of the reason behind it. And working with community colleges and other institutions, I rarely see colleges have a dedicated social media person.
Mm-hmm.
Very often it is someone who has it part of their responsibilities. And maybe if they're lucky, they can allocate 20% of time to manage social media. So 20% of a full-time employee to manage 6 different channels, for example, which most colleges expect, right? Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, X, LinkedIn, YouTube, maybe. So to cover the basics, just the minimum frequency for those channels, you need at least 2,000 hours a year. And that 2,000 hours equals 1.85 full-time employees. And
Wow.
if you only have 20% of one person, that's 200 hours. So your institution is only able to cover 10% of what you need to cover, and you have a gap of 90% that you're not able to cover. So what happens in scenarios like this? People usually take the same content and post it on all the channels. And it's not their fault. It's just humanly impossible to create custom, tailored content for different channels, for different audiences at 200 hours a year, right?
Yeah.
So by estimating your time, not only it gives you a realistic picture of your resources, but you can also start thinking about how can I augment it? Where can I maybe get help? Maybe you think about adding student ambassadors. Maybe you think about including faculty and staff. Maybe you start developing your own ambassadors at other departments to help contribute to your social media efforts. So having, I think, quantitative data is really helpful instead of saying, well, it takes a lot of time, you know. So being more specific. And then I also, when I developed this tool, I found it useful, but I also sent it to Jenny Lee Fowler. I think you know her. She's the author of Organic Social Media, and she liked it and she found value in this. And I ran my assumptions by her just to make sure that, you know, I'm not missing something. And I posted those assumptions. So when you go to the calculator, you can see assumptions like what time I allocated to different channels and different tactics. So I can be more transparent and you know what are the inputs I used. So that's kind of the idea behind this calculator.
Yeah, Jenny Lee Fowler she runs social media at MIT, right?
Right.
And then she also wrote, Organic Social Media, great book on social media and systems and creating systems and things like that. And that's the other thing too, is like when we think about getting on a platform, we're thinking about the time it takes to, like, let's say hit record or type the post out and hit post, but you're not thinking about all of the systems. Now you've inherited all these problems or, you know, not problems, but like you've inherited hurdles now that you need to figure out. So like, how are you going to govern, like, what's your governance going to be? Like, what are the boundaries going to be for what type of content? What legal things are you going to run into when you're on, you know, Instagram and TikTok? They're using all these like popular songs and copyrighted things. And where is the line now between a commercial use and a personal use? And, you know, there's all this stuff that you got to start figuring out, that just posting the thing.
Yeah. And I would add crisis management is one of those other things that social media now dealing with. Community engagement, responding to all the comments, to all the inquiries. It's a lot of time outside of just posting. And I did allocate this time in my calculator. So I subtracted time for meetings, time for social media management from the time to actually create. So what you see in the calculator is the time you need to just create without approvals or meetings, etc.
Yeah, cool. I like that. And, as a business owner, does take a lot of time. And I'm mostly just active on LinkedIn, but even just like, you're right, even just like the time it takes to stay on top of comments and things like that, because I'll post something and then I'll go start editing some video, or like I'll go do something and I'm like, oh shoot, I gotta keep the algorithm fed here. I gotta respond to the comments and things like that. It can get stressful. And, that's a small portion of the time that I spend, in my business. So all these platforms are so nuanced too. Like I find, because I kind of take a lazy approach to short form video, to be fully transparent. I will post a snippet from the podcast and I'll just blast it to YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram Reels all at the same time. So I know that the best practice would be to customize everything. I just know that I don't have time to keep that up. So I'm like, well, get it out there. It's better than nothing. But I do notice that like it's so different between Instagram, YouTube Shorts, and TikTok. Like what takes off and what doesn't. The same video could have drastically different results depending on the platform because the algorithms are different, and I haven't taken the time to like really understand what's going into all that. But like someone that is, doing social media, management should know that stuff, and that is constantly changing.
Right. So you are a great example of a full-time employee who has social media as just one of the responsibilities. Maybe you allocate 5% of your time. Obviously, you can't spend it researching and understanding the nuances, right? So
yeah, my research is actually, it dovetails with my personal interests because I'm like always on TikTok and just scrolling funny stuff. So I'll naturally get some higher ed stuff in my feed. I'll be like, oh, that's a good idea. And I'll send it to myself. But yeah, so based on your experience, what do you think are some of the biggest inefficiencies in how higher ed handles content creation?
In terms of inefficiencies, I would say very often they focus on creating one piece of content instead of taking a step back and thinking, okay, we have this topic, we have this subject, how can we scale it across multiple platforms? One video is not going to go anywhere, right? You post it, people see it once, and it's gone from your feed. So you need to think about multiple pieces of content from one effort. And I think it's a hard adjustment for many institutions to make. So that's, in a way, inefficient.
Yeah, that's true. And it really makes a difference when you stick with a piece of content. And I find that that's very hard for a lot of organizations that I've noticed. They'll put a lot of effort into one long form piece of content, or video or blog post or something like that. And they okay, all right, we did that, on to the next thing. But it's like, well, wait a minute. Like there's so much that you can do to spread the reach of that, like breaking it up into different things, smaller posts, different breakout videos. For example, we just released 100 interview questions, like better interview questions than your standard sort of status quo, that you would ask a student. And I was talking to my business coach who helps me with a lot of content marketing. She's like, you can make one YouTube short for each one of those questions, and just expand on it. And like, but for me, I'm kind of like, all right, I did it. 100 questions. We figured it out. We got it up there. What's next?
Yeah.
So it's like really like sticking with a piece of content and really milking it for all you can. But that, that takes a lot of time, but it is a better use of resources.
Yeah. So one thing we started doing is faculty and staff and student interviews. So we usually would invite a faculty, let's say, for an hour. We'll set up the video shoot. We'll ask them 20 questions, and it could be a variety of questions. For LinkedIn, it could be about why Carroll is a great place to work. For Instagram, we could ask them a question about who did you want to be when you were growing up. For Facebook, it could be something else. So we would make sure we ask the right questions so we can repurpose this content on different platforms and still make it interesting to different audiences. And then take this content, create an article about this particular faculty member or a project they're working on, take this information and turn it into a LinkedIn carousel. So just thinking about how can you take this 1 hour of person's time and turn it into a lot of different assets that you can use throughout the year. Obviously, you wouldn't want to post them all at once, but you can use them on an ongoing basis. Like you probably do a lot of this for your clients where you build the library of assets. So that's the same the same idea. And this way people don't feel like they're giving us too much time because it's just 1 hour.
Yeah.
Right. And we take the heavy lift on creation.
Right. And I find that not enough organizations, higher ed and non-higher ed included, really understand distribution and really are working backwards from there in their content creation. I don't think I've really ever come across a client that was like, hey, we need a video. And then when I ask them, where is this going to live? They gave me a really concrete answer about the platform this is going to go on and the messaging structure for that platform for that student to see. Like, I can't think of one client in 15 years that had a distribution plan by the time they were like, we're ready to make this video. So a lot of our work is getting them to slow down. And because when you do, we worked with a school recently where we looked at all of their email comms flows, like except for admitted students. And the goal was like, how can we use video to increase yield? And we found all kinds of opportunities to replace blocks of text in those emails with a short video. And that informed like all the questions that we were going to ask these two students that we were going to interview, for this purpose. So we ended up with a list of like 15 different little topical videos that we can just get out of the interview that weren't even part of the story that we're telling. It's just like, hey, let's just take 20 minutes, to get a bunch of these, FAQs answered while you're sitting here.
Right.
And had we not understood, the opportunities in these communication touch points, we probably would have just gone in there and been like, what's your story? What do you like? What's, we would have gone for the story and like, what's interesting. But, you have such an opportunity when you have a student that's giving you an hour of their time.
Yeah.
To get a full funnel, content collection.
I was looking at my desk because I had this whole chart for the distribution. I wanted to show you, but I can't find it.
Oh.
Because
I'm sure it's brilliant.
Working really hard on trying to figure this out because we are building out workflows in our project management system to make sure we get all the pieces created and distributed in the right way. So it's a big undertaking.
Yeah, it really is. And to me, it's like one of the more fun things. I feel like every 6 months or so, I have a new whiteboard of just laying out like distribution and top of funnel and middle, all this stuff. That's fun for me, but it's not fun for everybody.
Right.
So tell me about what's your relationship with Carroll Community College? How'd you get connected with them?
I'm full-time at Carroll, and like I said, I do help other colleges as well. I do a lot of presentations, I do a lot of podcasts, and I do encourage people to invest in social media, and I show them how to measure it the right way, because what I found is institutions are more likely to invest if they know that it has an impact and it's tied to their strategic goals. So how do you tie social media to your strategic goals? It's not just the views and the engagement, right? You have to take it to the next level and figure out how can you measure it to demonstrate this impact. And I think that's another missing piece that many colleges have. They just don't have the time to measure it. Just to give you an example, I think it was about 2 years ago, we do post a lot of content for current students on our Instagram because it's one of the channels that our students follow the most and enjoy receiving content that way. And one of the campaigns we had was about promoting academic services at our institution, because we know if students are doing good in classes, they're more likely to retain. And since we have the tutoring services, why not help them do better, right? So we want to have more students use the services. So we posted a lot of entertaining content, fun reels on Instagram. And we saw a jump in the number of students using the services, but people were doubting, did the Instagram really have an impact on the number of students going to the tutoring center? So what I did is I got a list at the end of the semester of all the students who used the services, and I sent them a survey. And the survey asked them, do you follow us on social media? If you do, which channel do you follow us on? Have you seen the content about tutoring on our Instagram? Did it help you? Did it encourage you to use the services? And the results were great. Okay. So from those who responded, 82% said that they have seen the posts and stories on our Instagram, 98% that they found this informative, 81% said that social media influenced their decision to utilize academic support services, And 96% believe that social media increased their awareness and accessibility of student services. So this is huge, right?
Yeah.
So they are seeing it, they like it, and they are taking action and actually going to get the help at the tutoring center, which translates to them doing better in classes, which translates to retention. And then you can show, okay, social media has an impact on your retention strategy and your strategic plan. And the challenge is many departments don't have the time to do this type of research. But really, you only have to do it once. You do it once, you show the impact, and then it helps them see social media in a different way, you know?
Yeah, for sure. Do you have any, I know this is an issue that comes up for a lot of schools, is like, how do we balance the internal content, like letting current students know about events and resources available to them, with the external facing content? It's like, do you have separate account, like channels, or like, I don't know, how do you guys manage that at Carroll, and what are your thoughts about that?
So we have a student engagement account that is more specific for current students who are already at the college. But on Instagram college's flagship account, we do a mix of entertaining, fun, informative content that might appeal to prospective and current students. So a prospective student seeing that we have tutoring services might be helpful for them to make a decision to enroll, to say, well, makes me feel more comfortable. They have the services I need to succeed at the institution. The current student will see it and say, well, I didn't know they had this. Maybe I should go and use it since it's free.
For sure.
So it's a mix.
Yeah, I like that. You know, you can only create so many accounts. You know, I think there's value in, you know, creating a separate account that's like really strategically for current students, but at a certain point too, yeah, it's like a lot of the stuff that you post internally, the prospective students are going to see a window inside of what's really going on at the institution, and that's probably going to be persuasive to them.
And speaking of new accounts, another thing we didn't mention is many institutions have dozens of different accounts that social media need to monitor, right? Athletics might have an account, theater department might have an account, and social media manager needs to be aware of what's happening. Are they still active? Are they still posting? And very often we get requests from faculty and staff to say, hey, I want to start my own Instagram account for my automotive program. You know, we get those all the time. So what I'm seeing, people are using this calculator to have them take a look at how much time it will take for them to post on a certain channel. And then they say, do you have the time to allocate to manage this account and to have it grow and be successful? And very often the answer is no. Like once they actually see the number.
Yeah.
So that helps you also manage new accounts and prevent them from opening.
Because you don't want a bunch of dead accounts out there.
Right. But if you're really dedicated and you say yes, then we'll support you. Usually what we do is we ask you to create some content for our flagship account so we can test it and see that you can maintain the frequency. And if you can, then yes, let's go ahead and open the account.
That's cool. I like that. And that's a great use for the calculator too. Yeah, because that can get messy with a lot of people, a lot of different departments starting their own accounts. They'll post a few times and then it's just a ghost town from there. And then you just have this like sort of landfill of accounts that sends the wrong message that the school isn't actually active, you know?
Yeah, exactly. And then it takes time to deactivate it, to find the owner, you know, all of that. Another good use case would be a new platform comes along and your manager says, we should be on this platform. A senior leader heard that this is growing and very important. So the calculator helps you estimate the time and shift the conversation from, can we be on this platform, to do we have the resources to be on this platform? And that helps you make a more strategic decision with your resource allocation.
Yeah, I think embracing new platforms, in my opinion, needs to come down to like what percentage of time can you allocate to experiments? Because everyone looks back and goes, man, if we were just on TikTok in 2020, I mean, our school would be, you know, enrolling like Harvard numbers here, you know, because you think like, wow, we missed the wave, you know, and that's the fear of missing out. But I think you have to just like put it in its proper place of saying, a lot of social media hype around new platforms comes and goes. Like Threads was a thing. I hate like clicking on something interesting in my Instagram feed and then it's like, oh, you have to sign into your Threads account. I'm like, I don't want to. I just wanted to see it in, Instagram. Like, I'm not interested in Threads. I posted a few things on there. But yeah, I like to encourage people with like, if you have time to experiment in a new platform, go for it. Like, yeah, I mean, get on the early wave. And, what's the one that's...
The Blue Sky?
Blue Sky. Yeah, I see some higher ed folks moving over there, and I've considered getting over there too, but I'm kind of just like, I'll probably just not be able to keep up with it. But
I mean, I think that's a smart strategy for someone who doesn't have a lot of time to dedicate to social media. Pick one channel. In your case, LinkedIn. In my case, LinkedIn. Don't spread yourself thin. It's better to be effective and good on one platform than to try to be mediocre everywhere else.
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of the same people are on both platforms anyway.
Yeah.
So it's not like someone is necessarily TikTok exclusive.
Right. And people do share cross-platform. If somebody sees good content on TikTok, they might reshare it on Instagram. So the goal is to create great, valuable content that people want to share regardless of the platform.
Absolutely. So I wanted to ask you, tell us about the College Crusader platform. I thought it was just an interesting concept of providing community colleges with ready-made social media content. So tell us about that.
So one of the challenges I found is community colleges are understaffed, underfunded, especially marketing departments. So while social media is extremely important, they're not able to keep up with it because of the time required to manage it. So since all community colleges are very similar, we serve a specific area, just one county very often. We're not competing with each other. We have very similar programs and services, and we are serving the same audiences. So why recreate content if you could create it once and use many times? So that was kind of the idea behind it, is what if I create the content for different platforms? I create reels and TikTok scripts that colleges can just purchase and tailor it to their institution, but they would have a calendar of content available, so they wouldn't have to think about trends. They wouldn't have to think about what should we say to a particular audience in this particular month. It will simplify the decision-making process and make their job easier. And it's very cost-effective compared to hiring a new person or outsourcing. So that was the idea behind it.
It's so brilliant. I just think it's very brilliant. How do you manage? So like if it's a different brand, is there put in a different logo, or like how do you manage across different brands?
So let's say you have multiple colleges in different counties. So they could use the content. They may change and they highlight some of the names or department names that might be unique to them. So they can change the name of the program. They can change the name of the mascot if they have one. But then they use their own visual assets. So they would upload a photo of their institution. They would use their faculty and staff and students to record videos. They would use their own videos for content. So it would still look like them, but the captions, the scripts that they might be using are more standardized, but they can tailor them to their own institution. And they would get a lot of different scripts, so they can pick and choose what makes sense. So they don't have to use them all. They don't have to post on the same days that I suggest. So it's very fluid, but it's almost like a good foundation.
Yeah, it's brilliant, because if you're going to get honest and you're going to go on this calculator that you built, and you're probably going to see that it's going to take, whatever you're trying to do is going to take more time than you thought it was. I mean, doing something is better than just deciding to do nothing. I mean, like, social media isn't really optional, in higher ed. So I just love that you've solved that problem and just made it easy for people, because I think that's where so much of the mental load comes in, is like, what do I post? How do I do this? What are the trends? Like, what should we say? Yeah, it's brilliant.
Thank you.
All right, let's see. Winding down here. So if a school is just starting to get serious about social media, what's the first thing that they should focus on?
They should go to the calculator. I'm just kidding.
Yes. No, seriously.
No, they really should figure out what their goals are and how those goals align with their strategic plan. And then kind of go backwards and see what resources they need to meet those specific goals, how much time it will take, what current resources they have in-house, how can they supplement. So I do encourage colleges working with students. I think social media ambassadors are a must-have for any higher ed institution. I know it does take time to manage them and train them, and I do have some resources for that as well. But it will add authenticity, it will help you make stronger connections with your audiences. It will elevate your whole brand because now they're speaking to your students, not the brand, and they like to hear it from real people. Work with your faculty and staff, train them to be your ambassadors on social media. I do think that with so many ads that we are seeing right now, with all the clutter, it's becoming more and more important for higher ed institutions to break through. And people are more likely to listen to people they know and trust. So, for example, if I see your post about a video and I know you, I'm more likely to engage with your content versus an ad I see on LinkedIn, right? The same idea applies to colleges. If you see an academic advisor posting on Instagram about deadlines, financial aid information, and then you come into the college and you see that person, you're already familiar with them and you almost feel like you know them, and you're more likely to develop those stronger relationships that will help you stay at the institution and start building those connections. So really look into employee advocacy program, student ambassador program to supplement your internal resources that you have, because they are limited, and you want to think outside of your flagship accounts and think broader. How can your employees and influencers help you reach new audiences and grow your social media in beyond your flagship account?
Yeah, that's super smart too. Yeah, I think we think about social media as just the flagship accounts, but it's a whole culture.
Right.
And I would think, and I've never really tried to address that, I've never really been in the position to, but I would think that that's a tough problem to solve, to get employees to embrace their own brand or like their personal brand connected with the institution. I know when I was I worked at United Way, nonprofit, fresh out of college, and Twitter had just come out. And so, our marketing person there was trying to get all the employees on Twitter, and I was super into it. Like I was like trying to be a social media like manager or whatever for, I loved it. So you didn't have to ask me, but but like I remember the grumbling of like some of the older generations of like, I don't want to post anything. Like it's just like, I don't get it. I don't care. I mean, have you seen there be any ways of getting, or is it just like you just focus on the ones that the employees that care to do it or like have an existing like passion for it?
Yeah, at my college, we actually started an employee advocacy program 2 years ago. And it's a voluntarily training program where we invite faculty and staff who are interested in building their personal brand on LinkedIn. And we train them on how to do it. It's about 3 days, 2.5 hours each session. And we start with identifying their values, tying those values to the institution, defining content pillars for each individual, training them on how to create content for different pillars, figure out what is it that they want to be known for, who is their target audience. So doing all the steps that you would do when you do marketing, right? And they find it extremely insightful and helpful. Some choose to continue and actually start posting. And we explain that by being active on social media, yes, you open up many doors for you professionally. Maybe someone wants to co-author a research with you or invite you to a conference or even just learn from others. It's a huge opportunity to be present on social media. But also it reflects well on our institution because we do want to attract the best talent we can. And when new prospective employees see active, happy employees on social media sharing about the institution, they're like, wow, maybe they got something there, maybe I should join them. So it's a great win-win opportunity. But yes, it's not right for everyone. And we do hear faculty and staff, some are like, well, I don't want to be overly promotional. I don't want to be talking about myself. I feel weird. So we coach them on how to say it in a way that makes them feel comfortable and they don't feel like they're promoting themselves, but they speak from their experience that reflects well on them and the institution at the same time. So this program has been going on for 2 years, and some people choose to post, some people choose not to. Once they take a training, it's completely voluntarily. But I do know that people are seeing the difference. At the last Board of Trustees meeting, my supervisor came back and she said, well, one of the Board of Trustees said, wow, you guys are doing a great job on LinkedIn. I'm seeing more employees posting and sharing information. I'm like, that makes me feel so good. Like they're noticing the impact. And of course, all of those employees have their own influence, their own network, their own connections. So it really helps build that digital virtual community.
Yeah. Awesome. Love it. Well, it's been great having you, Maya. Where can people connect with you at?
LinkedIn is the best way. Let's get those 2,000 followers.
Yeah. We'll have a race.
Oh, no.
No, I'm just kidding.
It's okay. Let's do it.
Yeah, who could be the quickest over the 2,000 follower mark? No, go follow Maya on LinkedIn for sure. And if someone is like, gluten-free, dairy-free, something like that, where can they buy wholesome nibbles at?
It's wholesomenibbles.com.
I'm going there right now.
And if you guys want to check out the calculator, I'm sure you'll add it in the show notes, but it's mycollegecrusader.com/social-media-calculator.
Okay.
I should probably create a short URL.
Yeah, we'll put the link in the description. And yeah, this is great. Super, super loved having you and hearing all your wisdom. So thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks, John.
Hey, thanks so much for listening. 3 things I want to invite you to before you go. Number 1, if you want to know what's working right now in higher ed video, like what videos are getting tons of views, likes, comments, all that, you can get ungated access to our report, aptly named What's Working in Higher Ed Video, a comprehensive guide for higher ed Marcom leaders and content creators. So check it out at unveiled.tv/higher ed video, and you might want to bookmark it because it's designed to be a resource for you that you can keep referring back to for inspiration. Number 2, reminder to sign up for my free newsletter all about content creation and strategy at unveiled.tv/newsletter. And number 3, follow me on LinkedIn. If you're searching for me, my name is John Azzoni. It's spelled Johnazoni. I'm on there all day, every day, for better or for worse, posting regular content and engaging with folks like you. So I'd love to connect with you on there. And with that, we'll catch you on the next episode of the Higher Ed Storytelling University podcast. And as always, I am cheering you on. Okay, bye.